Welcome to Pop Culture Retro, which was recently voted the 15th best podcast by the residents of Golden Years Retirement Community in Boca Raton, Florida. Each show will revisit some of your favorite pop culture memories with insider and outsider perspectives. Now, please help me welcome your hosts, Moosie Drier and Jonathan Rosen.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Pop Culture Retro. I'm Jonathan Rosen, along with Moosie Drier, and today we are thrilled to welcome one of the founding members of the legendary rock group, The Turtles, who are responsible for songs such as Happy Together, Eleanor, and You Showed Me.
So happy together.
He's also the author of the book Happy Forever, My Musical Adventures with the Turtles. He headlines the Happy Together tour, and he's also someone who I've seen in concert a few times. Please help us welcome Mark Volman. Mark, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me.
Welcome.
Yes, well, we have a lot to cover here, but I want to start by going back with you. Who were some of your musical heroes when you were growing up?
Mostly through music that was being played by people around the house, mostly my dad, my mom, my brother. They were all musical in their own way. It's fortunate when you go back and look at that they were very instrumental in the success of the Turtles, just even around them supporting us by letting us use the house to put the band together. And back in 1963, 1962, back in those days, it was bands like the Turtles and bands like the Beach Boys and so forth, and they sort of opened the door for the future of popular music coming to the live audience, concert business. Some of our early concerts that we played kind of remind me of what we're doing now with the Happy Together tour.
Oh, we're definitely going to ask about the tour. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So go ahead. And
oh no, but you're the last person I want to cut off. So I want.
That's all right.
So, hey, Mark. First of all, just thanks for being here with us, and thanks for. You probably get this a lot. When I was a kid, and I would hear certain songs, it's so effective. It would just make, no matter what's going on, for that 3 minutes, however long the song is, they would just make me feel happy and just tune my life out that, maybe wasn't so happy at the time. Thank you for participating in that vehicle for people, because I know you must get this a lot. Happy Together, it transforms the moment you're in. You can be in the car in traffic, and then suddenly I don't care about traffic.
Yes.
Love it.
Well, Together kind of stands by itself on top of the Turtles songs. She'd Rather Be With Me, You Showed Me, It Ain't Me, Babe. I mean, there's another 6 or 7 songs that kind of get played a lot on the 60s music stations. And those songs were active recordings. I say active because we arranged them, we produced the music, even though somebody got credit for it, for producing. Most of all the music we were making, we used no studio musicians.
Oh.
We were just really simply put, we were a high school band that really was not going to last past 1960, that period of time. And it was not going to last because the record companies were changing so quickly every time out. Rock, pop music of the 60s was different than classic rock of the 70s. And so It's one of those elements that you say our music kind of fits with a certain feel. It's a feeling you get, not just a song, and that's something we are happy to look at as our contribution, I suppose.
How did you meet Kalen Howard?
Yeah,
Kalen.
in high school. In high school,
Yeah.
We had a band in high school. Many groups started that way. 1963, 1964 opened the door for us to uh, play in the clubs in the Los Angeles area. We were young, 15, 16 years old, and we didn't really know what the hell we were doing. We were just really, we plowed off into it. And when high school was going to stop in 1965, we just figured that'd be the end of it all. And
Wow.
in fact, it surprised all of us that, right at the end of it, the record company was able to parlay the beginnings of our records into a record company. White Whale Records started as a part of that. So you just let it sort of moved us. It kind of shifted gears every time we kind of shifted gears with the style of music the Turtles was making. Happy Together was in its own room when it was taking its place. The signifier was that it just was given an award for 3 million airplays or something, by Songwriters of America, and so those kind of things they do when you start to pass out halfway through the evening and you got to go to bed. But we were fortunate. We really were, and we are blessed to look back at it as something that really still is able to be with us, and it's comforting to have Happy Together and Eleanor and those songs to go out on tour with, because in the end result, people love the songs, and it doesn't really matter who sings Happy Together. It's just a great song. It's nice that we've parlayed it into commercials and songbooks, and just everything you can has pointed in the direction of it being the Turtle song. Happy Together has ended up cultivated a life of its own.
You started when you started your band. I was reading that you were the Night Riders and the Crossfires. You were surf music first. So whose idea was it to start changing what you played?
Oh, we were a great surf band. we had a great guitar. You needed to have a guitar player, kind of like Kenny and the Fiends, and there were tons of bands coming out of the South Bay, and the Crossfires actually was the prequel to the Happy Together sound that we would create using the soft. Howard always used to describe it as taking the soft sounds and building on that, and building it up and building up, and then choruses that were just demanded that you sing along, because you'd be thrown out of any place that if you didn't know the words or something. But it was a great for the high school, because we graduated in 65. It Ain't Me Babe was about 64, 65. 66 was You Baby. And each of these parts of our lives kind of contribute to the sound of what was being allowed to be made as recordings. But at the same time, we were kind of part of that creation of the music changing with the time. And it was the time when people were going to be going off to college, Vietnam, record companies were opening up the door to songwriters. We were doing other group songs like everybody else was. We liked the songs we were making. We grew up with great artists who were writing songs, and we were the beneficiary of that.
Yeah, you were given the name the Turtles, right? You did not want it originally?
Yeah, that's true. Really good idea that we had. Yeah. We in '65 we needed a new song for a new sound for the band, and the band was really looking for, and that's where It Ain't Me Babe stepped up. Bob Dylan was writing a lot of songs from his kind of folk days, and the Turtles were lucky enough to find an arrangement and all that that would work for us. Johnny Cash had done a version of it, so we thought if Johnny Cash can do a version, why can't we? And so we did It Ain't Me Babe, and it got us into America's top 5. And it was a good version of the song. And if you haven't seen the movie, check it out. It's they used our arrangement to make the recording because that
Oh,
was
no kidding.
I was
So-
working as a roadie pretty much at the first time we were turned loose in the recording studio.
Okay.
And It Ain't Me Babe, and we were doing some folk songs. A lot of we were big fans of artists like Hoyt Axton or artists like some of the folk groups. Lyman Sabell was there. There was a bunch of them coming out in the 1960s, and the Byrds were doing things like Mr. Tambourine Man and their cover versions of Bob Dylan probably put him in the charts. I mean, they were incredibly arranged pieces of very fondly. You can go back and listen to things like Mr. Tambourine Man and Turn, Turn, Turn.
Yeah.
The Byrds were really setting the bar really high. And It Ain't Me Babe did that for us. It got into the top 10, and we were able to start a career on that song. And so it was a very lucky place and time. Whatever it was, there was something cuddly about the whole system that was coming out of California at that time. There was a soft edge. It wasn't a hard sound, and so it demanded voices, and we had them. Fortunately for us in high school, the Crossfires were all members of the Westchester High School choir, and the choir had our bass player Chuck Ports was the bass singer. The rhythm guitarist Jim Tucker, he was one of the tenor voices. Al Nichol, the original lead guitarist on the Crossfires surfing music album, which is available through Rhino Records.
Well, speaking of the vocals, I think as time went on, your voice became more and more prominent in the band, seemingly. Was that a thing? Was that something that perhaps other band members may have resented? Like you came in and then suddenly you're singing more and more?
Yeah, I was in the crew. I was the roadie, you know.
Yeah.
I wasn't. But once we started playing around the South Bay, and we would work all, Palos Verdes, Manhattan Beach, and all the places that the Turtles kind of came out of, that introduced artists like Dick Dale and the Dale Tones, who went on to have hit songs and be their own kind of charismatic. Dick Dale was very much like a Frankie Avalon nightmare, and it's a fun period of time for us because we were doing a lot of cover songs. We were singing Howard and I were doing things with songs from the Righteous Brothers, much like they went on to become hits for other people. We were still playing those songs all through the South Bay, and the Turtles had a really good career as a cover band, pretty much. We worked in a club where we backed up artists like the Drifters and the Coasters and the Supremes and wherever we could play. And then that moved us into the working clubs in Vegas at some of the, restaurant bars and singing. And we kind of saw the end was coming faster than we wanted it to. And that was when Happy Together happened.
Well, that's what I want to ask. Yeah. A couple things I wanted to ask about that. Well, first, I want to go back to your humor, first of all, because you incorporated a lot of humor in your performances, which is, like the Monkees did, but you did it first. So was that a conscious decision that we should put humor in, or did it just happen organically?
Yeah, it was an organic contribution to the world of popular music. I like to say that we kind of knew what we were doing once we got it going. Once the ball was kicked out the door, it had to go somewhere. And that was the band was like that. We were kind of breaking up. And we figured it Ain't Me Babe was a hit, but we weren't feeling the backlash of it. It wasn't like, the Beatles doing, their early songs where they were doing what we were doing, the same cover material, the Isley Brothers, Barrett Strong with Money, and all of those hit songs that would go on and support the Beatles out of Liverpool. The Turtles out of Manhattan Beach were doing the same songs. And as we grew as a group, we wanted to be more involved with the group. And so began a necessary change in the sound and the voices and everything. And that would be It Ain't Me Babe would open the door for us as a recording act to sing in harmony. And we took those harmonies from high school, those four voices with Al Nickel, Mark Volman, Howard Kalin, Jim Tucker. There was the same band that would leave the heavy surf music of 1965 and turn into a 60s sound that was supported by She's My Girl. Listen to You Showed Me very closely, and you're hearing a very important record for us. I mean, Happy Together was a great record to be a part of, but You Showed Me was really a center of our voices that would go on and lead us into areas of sound and production, and we became good at making hit songs.
You showed me how to do exactly what you do, how I fell in love with you.
And you Showed Me is actually my favorite Turtle song.
Yeah, it's just waiting to be heard again. I mean, Happy Together tours are going to go out on a 17th year in a row. We've taken out the Happy Together show. And we've got a lot of good songs. We got some great acts this year that are going to be with us. Once again, we've invited the Cowsills and the Vogues and Gary Puckett and the Union Gap, Little Anthony and the Imperials.
What a lineup.
The Turtles and the guy Jay and the Americans. And so it's a good tour with great songs. And we have a really, really good band that plays, that Howard and I put together 15, 16 years ago. And they all love the music we play, which is really, to just say straight out front, it's easy to see the success, it's the songs. Those songs are Eleanor. I mean, it's like you smile every time Eleanor plays on the radio. It's scary how loud it is and how much punch it has in the recordings. And I'm glad we made the records we did, and I'm glad there's people like you who still find it necessary to warn people we're coming, and we're coming in.
I've seen the Turtles concert, and I always had a great. I've seen quite a few of the groups that are on the Happy Together tour.
Even now, Instagram puts up getting in touch with me, just the official Mark Volman site that you can, and it's got all the updates on a day-to-day basis, and it'll begin to be more active as the summer approaches.
But Happy Together was passed around by a lot of bands, and it was passed up. I read that the demo was so poorly, had been played so many times that you can almost not even hear what was happening, and it was passed up by so many bands. How did you guys end up going, okay, let's do this one?
Well, we were that sounds terrible. We were desperate for realizing as we were, going through our career with the Amy Babe and You Baby and up to Warren Zevon wrote a song called Outside Chance, a great song that we did a version of. It didn't become as big a hit because it was a little bit too rock and roll for the Turtles. Turtles were a little more like the Association. It was kind of filled in with great voices, and there was always that little bit of folk humor and soft music, like You Showed Me, like Happy Together. So it was one of those elements that you just had to kind of find. We were always looking for a good song. I always say that we learned a lot knowing groups that we grew up with. Probably the most important group that came out of that was Three Dog Night. And they were very instrumental at a time when our career was kind of jostling with not being successful anymore. And they were doing a lot of shows that they wanted to have us on. And I kept our career growing towards the 1970s, and where You Showed Me now became the representation of there's the Turtles. But it was inevitable. Time was capturing us and saying, you've just about had enough. But that was where the separation of us, Howard and I joining Frank Zappa. And that became the biggest thing probably for us in the history of music, was joining Frank and singing all his music. We toured with Frank's music for 3 years, went around the world about 7 times. Loved working with Frank, opened a door for us that, we sang with Bruce Springsteen, we sang with Keith Moon, we sang with all of these immensely popular rock artists. We had #1 records with bands like the Psychedelic Furs.
Amazing.
It was a pretty amazing career for us. The band doing the music was the same band that would do some of the crazy things we did with Strawberry Shortcake and 200 Motels, Life on the Road. And it was also opening the door for other groups who were going to fall in line. Deep Purple. Deep Purple took our song Smoke on the Water, came out of the story about Frank Zappa and the Mothers were at the only place in town.
Which is a lyric in the song.
Yeah, it's the lyric. But the best one was, Montreux, right? Somebody's yelling Montreux. Do you need airline tickets? We can get them for you, sir. Thank you. Um, I think one of the great things about our careers, we pretty much set the open door philosophy of anything we had, we could kind of push forward through, and had chances of it growing, tiresome because it got so much play on the radio or something of that nature.
So you were influenced by the Beatles like many. Is it true that you guys, did you get to hear Sergeant Pepper before it was released?
Oh, well, yes,
you met them?
We're very irritable people. We can cause a lot of mayhem wherever we go. but we had an album come out in England in 1965, 66. They released the Happy Together record. Had a couple of songs on it that weren't on the West Coast version, California version. They popped in a few other songs so that it would be worth more of the dollar value, was worth a lot more. So instead of just having 10 songs doing less than 28 minutes a side, we started realizing the 60s was one thing, but the 70s was right around the corner, and we weren't part of if you think about what was coming, disco and all of the elements of the 1970s, country rock, with all of those incredible vocal harmony bands, a lot of that, just like you showed me, was part of the Turtles' history and that kind of soft moment of musical history. We saw a big change taking place with the bands that we mentioned, with Three Dog Night and so forth. And so you could probably direct this into this Sergeant Pepper, because when we went to England to take our album to England and preview it for the record company, brought us over, and we did an album. We played all over London and all the clubs and concerts, and we were able to get a copy of the album from Graham Nash. He had a copy of the Sergeant Pepper, a demo. And back in that time, a demo was really a piece of steel with vinyl covering it, sort of like chocolate over vanilla,
Yeah.
And does that make any sense? What the hell am I talking about?
No, I know what you're talking about. That's like an icing. It's like just a layer on top of the steel, and just like the chocolate would melt off of your cone. That's the vinyl.
Right.
Who has that? Who has that demo today?
I do.
The Sergeant Pepper.
The Sergeant Pepper as a demo,
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, really,
down in the underbelly of the airplane here that were.
Well, yeah. Don't say. I'm going to cut out the part earlier where we talked about what town you're in. No, I really expected you to say, "Oh gosh, boy, who knows?" But whoever can have that demo now, I mean, that would be good. But you have it. That is.
Well, I've been offered. A lot of musicians know I have them, and in Nashville, it doesn't take long for something like I used to go to. Tuesday night, we'd play singles of everybody who I knew. John Oates used to come over, and a bunch of other artists, Bill Lloyd, Foster and Lloyd. A lot of the country artists I found when the Turtles came to Nashville, and I guess I kind of represented that move, because it kind of shifted all of our lockers and our vinyl stuff and all, just the whole thing of processing the Turtles' history, so it's available, so that somebody might want to get a 6-record set of the Turtles albums, all in vinyl.
You had your history. You talked about, the breakup part. And one of the things that I was reading, it's so difficult to comprehend. You had your problems with White Whale, which is around the time that the Turtles disbanded. So you couldn't use the Turtles name, but you couldn't also use your own names. You couldn't use Howard and Mark for your own names going touring.
Well, yeah, we were learning about the music business, not quite as fast as we could, but we should have probably been on top of it a little bit more. But the record company was breaking up, and we were told that they were not going to be making any more records. We had been with White Whale Records the whole part of the Turtles' career. So we were lucky because they were just a small independent company, White Whale Records. And the fact that they could promote it just enough to look Happy Together slid into the charts at #1. And Eleanor, You Showed Me was a #1 record. I mean, the record company was capable of doing it, but they were beginning to realize it was all too big for them. And I think that's sort of where Flo and Eddie started being important to us, because it introduced songs that Howard and I had been writing, and we wanted to kind of go with the flow, so to speak. And we want, like, do I need to do the official tour updates again?
So is that how Flo and Eddie? That's how Flo and Eddie came about. Then going under by Flo and Eddie, by going under those names, you skirted the whole.
We tried really good. In fact, we tried so well that the record company found in our favor when we finally sued them. Oh, wow. And we wanted to get our recorded. We didn't really know what was valuable and what wasn't. But we knew that the master recordings were important to try and get, and we did. And that took almost 7 years for us to get music that we created 7 years before. And what is so bad about it all is that they wanted the name. Well, wait a minute. We started the band in high school. And there's nothing for you here. It was like, I don't know. It was like infuriating, to have to fight for your own rights,
Yeah.
And we got all the rights finally, and we're able to repackage all of our recordings through Rhino. And Rhino did a really good job with what we wanted to do with it. When we did the later years where we did the recordings of what was going on at the time was starting to change drastically, and Flo and Eddie were starting to take over the marketplace for us as a recording act. Signed a new record deal. Howard and I did Flo and Eddie, Moving Targets, and so forth, and the adventures of the Turtles went on to be documented in folklore even today with this tour. It allows us to get out and point at the music so that it gets good uses on television for Christmas. And we've had several hip hop acts take our music and kind of regurgitate it back in our faces. And we had a couple of hit songs with Gucci Mane, who was a hip hop artist, who took a song that we wrote called Keep It Warm. And Keep It Warm was a very popular album for us. Online, it did very well. And it went on to be used by hip hop artists, and I say Gucci Mane had a top 5 record with "Keep It Warm," and we had another artist named Camila Cabello. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, she did a version of "Keep It Warm" that we wrote, Howard and I, and so it's ended up this year doing quite well in sales of what do they call that? Streaming. The only thing I know about streaming is you don't want to be there when the wave hits, and that'll take you right out.
Can you talk
So
about
that,
Howard a little? Just he's retired now, but can you discuss your relationship and your friendship with him through the years?
oh man, Howard and I have been together. I say 65 years, something like that. I
Wow.
mean, we don't get the credit for being a longevity because we're an oldies band, really. I mean, and it's unfortunately or fortunately, we were excited when we got to the number one with Bruce Springsteen. It was really Bruce wanted to do a certain sound that we were capable of bringing to him and Steve. Steve was very important to getting that record done
That's
because
the Hungry Heart song, right?
right, Hungry Heart. Well, that was the number
Oh, wow.
one record. I mean, above and beyond reality, it would go to number one, but they don't give us much credit except in the albums and on the slide-ins and stuff like that. But for the most part, there's a lot of stuff that if you go online and look up songs that Flo and Eddie made, it covers everything. We did work with John Lennon on a record called Live from New York.
New York,
Mhm.
yeah.
And there was just a bunch of stuff that working with Keith Moon was probably one of the most fun albums we ever got to make, Two Sides of the Moon. And then I say that, and right around the corner comes one of the guys from the band who started all of the video stuff, Duran Duran.
Right.
We ended up doing an album, a very popular album in Germany and in London, and we like there's something significant about having control of things. I don't know where it'll end up. We're just kind of looking at that. Howard couldn't tour anymore,
Right.
so that was driven home by doctors who said he shouldn't go out on the road anymore because of he had problems with his back and health issues that they're complicated, and promoters of theater, which we were really looking for a way to do a show. And so when Happy Together was created, it was created because of the way we wanted to play the original song recordings at these concerts that we do. And we're going to do somewhere around 60 concerts this summer. And
And you're doing it with Ron Dante, right? Ron Dante is singing with you.
Yeah, Ron joined the Turtles when we were in the process of deciding what to do. And he just is so annoying that we eventually signed him on to be in. But there's a lot of annoying people out on this tour. Okay, let's be honest. And,
But then correct me if I'm wrong. I don't take I take that as actually you guys are buddies and it's a compliment. Like
yeah,
if you weren't close, you didn't love each other, you wouldn't be able to say that.
oh no, that is I hope that's always been at the foot and of Howard and I's life. Was just always to make fun of people around us who thought it was so important to be successful.
So not to jump around too bad, but you sang backup vocals for T Rex's Bang a Gong.
All of his albums. Yeah, we did that. Jeepster, Telegram Sam.
Mm.
It's a Mark was one of the artists that we could make fun of more than almost anybody. Mark was such a dreamboat. I always say he thought he was the cat's pajamas. I've never figured out what does that mean, cat's pajamas. It must have something to do with some older people because it makes no sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, we. What were you asking?
I was just asking about Bang a Gong, and
Yeah,
I'm
Bang a
curious as to
Gong.
what other songs you may have also, lent your voice to, but you started
Yeah.
listing them too. So
Oh yeah, yeah. No, there. We work out. You'll hear. We work with Todd Rundgren on a bunch of things.
Wow.
Compassion. We did Compassion with Todd. Really enjoyed with the Psychedelic Furs. I think I threw their name into the pile. We did Love My Way. Their single #1 record in the United States was me and Howard, and that was a good project for us. Those are all fun to look back and reminisce because we really, I need a woman. I need a woman.
well, but speaking of looking back and reminiscing, it's fortunate that there's a book called Happy
Oh
Together.
yeah,
Let's talk about that. And what is that a different format than usual than your average book? And how did that come about? That format
are you
of
talking about my book?
Your
yes,
book.
that's
You
what I'm
happy
talking
together.
about.
Not the one I'm sitting with right here.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, here you go.
That might be the one.
It's cool, Mark. I gotta say, early on in this interview, you spoke about how we were just high school band. We were a high school band. We didn't know what we were doing. But you know what? There's a magic in a bottle that you can't plan on, you can't put on paper. And there's some sort of chemistry you guys had, and it came across, and it will trump the music school and the actual like structure of something that might make you feel like you know what you're doing. But you guys, whether you felt like you knew what you're doing or not, man, it just worked. It just
Yeah.
worked.
I think a lot we relate to a lot of the folks who are fans of the Turtles because we were, there was nothing really too uh, conjured up. It was all pretty naturally organic stuff happening, and all
Yeah.
we weren't the greatest musicians, but we played our albums, all of the Turtles music. We didn't use any of the silly thing they called musicians who sing. What did they had a good name
Yeah.
for all those guys? But
Right.
we didn't kind of end up going that way. We figured when it ain't me baby was over, we were over. And then it was You Baby. And You Baby was one of those overlooked songs that
Great song. Yeah.
yeah, and it became a really good sized hit for us. And
Right.
all you had to do was grow with your music and be able to continue to talk about it.
Yeah.
We're fortunate that the people that we made records with or the unfortunate. I miss Mark Bolan's gone and Frank Zappa's gone. I mean, this is getting a little eerie. It's like
Yeah.
because
Yeah. Well,
Frank was a great
yeah.
part of my
Yeah.
life. He was like a father to me and Howard.
Yeah.
He let us run rampant with his music, and someday it'll all be discovered, and it will be reinvented, and Rhino will be there, and somebody else with a cassette, and they'll restructure it, remaster it, and find a way to put it out again.
Well, we love your music. Like I said at the beginning, we're big fans, and it was such a pleasure.
You guys
Yes.
are great. I can tell what you know. I've
Thanks.
been interviewed a few times.
That you were able to come on and join us, and it was such a treat for us. Like I said, I've seen you in concert several times. Always put on a great show, And it was so great to be able to talk with you.
It's really nice to talk to you guys. And if we come into the city to play, try to be as annoying as some of the other
Absolutely.
people.
Yeah. Man, Mark,
Anyway, what a
You're-
pleasure to meet you and talk to you, both of you. I
Thanks.
really,
No,
really
pleasure was ours. And thank Mary Jane also for setting
yes,
this
Mary
up for
Jane.
us. And
I don't know. Did she leave? No, she's right. She's been here for the good.
I'll sign us up at here. But again, it was a real treat to get to speak to you, and we thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, you guys, take
This is-
care.
God
Yes.
bless.
This
Stay
has been
safe,
Pop
stay
Culture
safe.
Retro. I'm Jonathan Rosen with Moosie Drier, and again, a very special thanks.
Is that like Mookie Betts?
It's
That-
like
no.
Mookie Betts and Mookie Blaylock, only not nearly as talented with the baseball.
Or Rich? That's all we care about, the money. How much money did he get?
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
Who, Mookie? Oh my goodness. All right,
Well,
try that again, Jonathan.
Please like, comment, and subscribe. Right.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you for tuning in to Pop Culture Retro, where no one was hurt during the making of this podcast. Listening to this podcast just makes you really cool.